Amy Carter, and I'm one of the directors of teaching and learning in the Bellingham School District. One of the projects that I project manage along with Michelle Kasai-Bula is the TPEP. And so the way that we got started with TPEP in Bellingham was really in not this school year but last school year, so that was 12-13, where we were part of a RIG grant, regional implementation grant. And so we had applied for the grant and then had a group of people that allowed us to go to the ESD, the Educational Service District, and receive kind of training and guidance there that then that team of people brought back to our district. And we had kind of two different groups. That was, we called it the TPEP work group, and it was a combination of teachers and administrators that were working together, some of our union leadership teachers. And then we had what was the TPEP Advisory Committee, which was a larger kind of formal committee of about 30 people. So we had representation from each school. And then that's part of how we sort of disseminated what we were learning from the ESD. And the major bodies of work were really selecting the instructional framework for our district, and then also just starting to lead people to know and understand what was coming in terms of the new teacher and principal evaluation system. I was really glad that we had the guidance. I felt like was really successful is that we had the guidance from the ESD, so they had walked us through processes to use with our larger work group team to figure out how we would go about selecting the instructional framework and how to really include a broad group of people in that process so that we did have, I think, wide representation and really thorough communication. We worked very closely with our communications department as well all throughout that year, had a lot of Q&As and things that went out. So I feel like we were able to communicate well with the system so that people felt included and informed and knew what was happening in that process.
So the role of instructional framework specialist in the Bellingham School District, what that looks like and what I've done is I started last year, very end of last year, with receiving training through the state of Washington on the teacher principal evaluation project in general and what that was looking like in our district and what that was going to mean for us. And then I received specialized training through the University of Washington in each of the 5 dimensions. So really studying in depth one dimension at a time with the authors of the framework and other instructional framework specialists. And that was the 5 dimensions plus summative scoring at the end. So here in Bellingham, we chose to do a side-by-side training with our administrators and the teachers who were rolled onto the new evaluation project this year. And so that was a quarter of our teachers plus the principals that they were working with. In those trainings, the teachers and the principals were learning about each of the 5 dimensions one at a time, just like the framework specialists learn about them. And what was really powerful about that is that we would learn about those dimensions both through reading and through observation. So we would dig into a dimension first by doing some sort of reading around it and discussing what that was. And we would always use the same strategies as teachers and principals that we would want teachers to use with their students when engaging with the reading. Then we would watch film of real teachers teaching, nothing staged, but real teachers in their practice, and we would analyze that film using the 5 dimensions, but we weren't doing it by ourselves or on an island. It was something that all of us who are going through this process were discussing together, and by doing that, it's leading us down this pathway of reliability and our understanding of what the framework is really all about, and those conversations that we're having about what does powerful teaching look like in the context of the framework of the 5D is where much of our growth is happening.
Another thing that I think has helped make our process successful is that we did decide that we wanted to include teachers side by side with principals in the training. And I think that has helped a lot sort of lift the veil off the process so everybody knows what it's about, teachers and principals alike, and that they're learning together, and this concept of reciprocal accountability that Sal talks about. And I think it's really authentic because we had teachers holding principals accountable for their role and their part in the process and the other way around. So I think that's been really good.
What makes it different from what we've done before is we have these clear definitions now on multiple dimensions of what we're going to call quality instruction. Well, turns out that's fairly complicated stuff, and when you start to try to calibrate and come to a place where you're seeing things in a common way, so that if you walk into a classroom and observe, and then I walk into a classroom and observe, and my teacher colleague next door walks in and observes what's going on, we're essentially starting to see things the same way and to be able to link it using evidence to the framework. So that issue around calibrating at a high level with a really complex set of new tools in our wheelhouse is that's a big deal. The other one I think that I'd put out there, and this is something that I think we see nationally with regard to teacher evaluation, is there was a lot of rhetoric about these new systems as they got implemented that this was about firing teachers more effectively, or this was it's all about teacher accountability. And the reality is that if these new tools are any good, it's really not mostly about that at all. In fact, I would say the scoring of practice and the accountability function around the summative evaluation is such a small piece of what makes this new system powerful. And it's important, and I think we've done exactly the right thing in Bellingham in painting that this is really a way for us to work on growing practice with new tools that help us with better definitions and that really do capture a much more nuanced picture of what quality instruction is. And so we've tried to downplay the accountability side of this, because the reality is, a principal who's been doing his or her job, regardless of what toolkit we've always had the ability to deal with poor practice. And these new systems continue to allow us to do that when we need to, but they do so much more than that. They offer us this much clearer, more robust picture of what quality instruction is, linked to an evidence base, and are causing teachers and principals to have richer, better conversations designed to move their practice. So to me, that walking that line and ensuring that, we're dealing with the accountability function, it's important on one level, but it's so not the whole picture. It's so much more about this is a new opportunity for teachers to connect to a quality definition of what's good instruction look like, and to have those conversations that help them to do better with kids.
This is not another initiative of stuff to do. It's a lens or a filter, if you were, that really focused what I do. And I think for me the real powerful point is that it freed me from so much that I thought I had to do, because a lot of what I did, well intended, didn't really lead to significant student growth. And by dealing with the TPEP model, even though I'm not distinguished in a whole lot of categories, I know exactly what I need to do next. I know where I'm strong and can relax a little bit and hit an area where I'm really not very strong. And I don't take that in a negative way, because the path of where I need to go in improving my teaching is so clear. And I don't think I could have said that in my early years. A lot of it was what this professional said or that professional said or what my particular principal happened to like. This is very clear. It's very clear. It's I've never been a better teacher. I'm not top of the pile yet, but I am amazed at what my kids are able to do. And even to be able to turn over the onus to the kids, what's your next goal? Why? How are you going to measure that? I no longer say, raise your hand if you understand what I'm talking about. It's, I need to know how you know, and I need to know how they know, and they get to discuss it with each other. They own their learning. They own when they don't understand something. It's really, really powerful. So I've come from thinking, oh, here we go again, initiative number 89 in my career, to, oh, this is really cool. It wasn't always easy, and I'm certainly not done learning, but I have a total different respect for this as opposed to some of the things that have happened in the past. And I'm more excited about teaching than I ever have been.
I think by having that common language, having focus on learning, focus on teaching and learning, that we are able to bring our students forward more maybe than we have in the past. I think by having that common language, I can collaborate with my peers, and we can truly focus on what work it is we need to do in order to get our students to where we want to go.
My involvement through this as a framework specialist, but also as a teacher who is on the new evaluation system and participating in these days of training with my colleagues and with my administrators, going out and doing trainings with other districts, as well as offering trainings in my own district for teachers who have missed the main district trainings I've been providing, makeup trainings. And on top of that, this year doing my national boards, what I've found is that everything is coming together for me in that, and I have a much better understanding of my own teaching. And one of the things that I feel is most important is when I did my self-assessment at the beginning of the year using the 5D rubric, I thought I understood and I was able to figure out where I was on that. And as the year went on, even though I was working on my teaching and analyzing my teaching much more closely than I ever have before, my self-assessment actually went down on the rubric, which I was okay with, because what that meant to me is that all of my learning and all of my conversations around powerful teaching and learning had helped me understand better what it was that I could be doing for my students and helped me set some really clear goals for what I want to do to improve.
Well, I'm so glad that I was involved with TPEP from the beginning, because we started bargaining in the fall this year to get that TPEP language in, and having been in on the ground floor, I had a deep understanding, or as deep as it could be, of TPEP and how it was being implemented in our district. Looking at the 37 indicators, I'm comparing that to what I'm doing. It's much more thorough than the evaluation program that we used before, where it was just, this is what I do and this is how it's going. Now it's, all right, how am I doing with getting the questioning at a deeper level in my classroom, for example?
The way in which this new approach to the evaluation conversation, to the evaluation process, is really causing folks to have to look at their practice in new ways and in deeper ways. And you know, when I hear our veterans, you know, that have been through this first year, who've had a good experience with it, talking about how, you know, not only is this not just one more thing, you know, quote unquote, coming down the pike from the state, it's a way to integrate all that we're doing at a system level around that core instructional framework and really help teachers to deepen their knowledge and, you know, in much more nuanced ways than we have in the past.
When you really can start to work with the terms and what they mean and what they represent, and you watch the videos in the training and you start analyzing that, and then you start thinking of what you do, it really started to come together. And I think it was a little bit past halfway through our training, it just kind of clicked with me. That this is not, again, this isn't more stuff. It's just a way to focus your instruction, your personal learning, and helping kids make progress.
I would expect that we have teachers who feel more self-actualized around their practice because they're clear about what they're working on, where they're strong, where they're limited, and how to address those limitations. And ultimately, we'll see hopefully better learning for kids as a result across our district.